just jumping right into it, dude. Like, I
Yeah.
loved this movie. It was so much fun.
Oh, thank you, man. I really
Like,
appreciate it. Thank you.
it really feels like a 1-2 punch from you, to be honest. Like, it made me really excited to like this one. Uh,
Oh, thank you.
so like, yeah, just jumping into it. Like, the time between Scare Me to Werewolves Within is such a
Hmm.
short amount of time. Can you kind of speak on not so much the journey between the two, but like how close they kind of came to be around the same time?
It was kind of crazy because by the time, let's see, we wrapped Scare Me and shot and wrapped it in 14 days in I guess 2019 in January of 2019. Um, God, is that right? February of 2019. Um, and By the time we had a rough cut, uh, Vanishing Angle, Matt Miller and Natalie Metzger, who were also the producers of Wolf of Snow Hollow,
Mm-hmm.
came to came to a test screening, like a really fat test screening, 2 hours and 15-minute cut of Scare Me, and they had awesome notes. And they were also like, we're working on this other werewolf film. Would you like to throw your hat in the ring? And I was like, yeah, So pretty much by the time we were like totally locked and delivered to Shutter on Scare Me, I had pitched and perhaps I might have won the gig for Werewolves. And so it just worked out that by the time we premiered at Sundance in 2020, that I was in prep for Werewolves. I was only able to see Scare Me once on a big screen, and it was at Sundance opening night at midnight. And then the next day, did the water bottle tour, I guess, and was on a plane to get to
Mm-hmm.
Fleischman's, New York, for prep on Monday. It was crazy. So
That's
I was
nuts.
I was one of the very lucky bastards who got to like do the back to back thing, because you hear about first time filmmakers, it takes them hell of a long time to roll back into the second. I think this is just serendipity.
Mm-hmm. Were you at all reluctant to kind of take a look at it at first, being that, with Scare Me, it was very much your thing as far as writing it, starring it, that kind of thing? Like, not that you needed like vanity for like another project, but like, do you know what I mean? Like having something that kind of had like a script already in place. Were you kind of reluctant, or were you excited about that opportunity?
The only I was excited all the way through. I mean, the only thing I was reluctant about was like, it's is this going to be a video game movie? And Mishna would be the first one to kick my ass and be like, video game movies aren't a bad thing. Like, don't come into it, all dragging. And I was like, I'm not trying to drag video game movies. It's just that, as we all know, like they don't have a great track record, and so I was nervous about not only the responsibility of that, but working with a big studio like a Ubisoft movie based on a video game called Werewolves Within. I was like, oh goodness, what am I gonna have to deal with here? And I opened it, and the first thing it made me think of was arachnophobia. It made me think of
Mm-hmm.
Fargo. It made me think of Hot Fuzz. And I knew I had to like pitch on it. And also, it felt very personal to me because it felt like a town I grew up in, a predominantly white small town that's sort of narrow minded, that has newcomers coming in constantly, that's sort of, perhaps intimidated by change, as most small town folk are, and sometimes to a deadly degree. And I think that's why I was able to win the gigs, because I was like, I know this town, I know these people, and let's get some newcomers in there and see what that tension is like when they're snowed in and dealing with a werewolf.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned arachnophobia and films like that, kind of like that Amblin vibe. The film, to me, like it really kind of harkened back to that feeling I got growing up watching The Goonies. Like it kind of
Oh
had this,
man,
like small town, like you said, somewhere you knew, like being someone who, was from, a cross between California and Oregon near Astoria, watching
yeah,
Goonies
oh.
growing up, that was huge for me. Like that, and
Yeah.
also the Maple Street episode of Twilight Zone. I could kind of see little hints of that, whereas people kind of coming at each other when they're faced with like this danger. Between like Wolf of Snow Hollow and now Werewolves Within, I'm seeing this resurgence of really kind of thought provoking, character driven werewolf films kind of coming back, and it kind of goes back to that, like, like 81 year of, American Werewolf and The Howling, where you get these genre films. They're kind of like offering something new to the subgenre. And I feel like that's what
Mm.
this film and Snow Hollow is both doing with werewolf films. Was that kind of like something that maybe you wanted to do, kind of give something new to the subgenre?
I definitely wasn't thinking about how can I actively offer something new. I think if anything, I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of going like, I want this to feel like Fargo if it were an Amblin movie. And it's funny you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
Goonies because Goonies, I think I don't talk about it enough, but that might be the quintessential um film of my upbringing that's like in my blood, like especially because it was my bond with my sister and my brother who are 9 years my senior. um there's something about the orchestral swell, the pacing, the style long before Edgar Wright and Taika and whatever Lee Winnell in that kind of that Amblin Spielberg era, obviously an Amblin film. There was the Goonies, and I think in part, without being able to put my finger on it initially, I talked to composer Anna Drubich and said I want this to feel swelling in that kind of John Williams way, but more like, I went wall to wall Jerry Goldsmith Poltergeist on the Scare Me temp cut
Mm-hmm.
and on Werewolves Within, and I think between that and also some great music pulls kind of early on, and just what a visceral editor and a musical editor Brett Bachman is, who did Werewolves and also did like Mandy and Color Out of Space. We ended up with something that was even more stylish than I had even imagined. The music was a big part of that, I think.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned uh, growing up in a town that was, predominantly white and kind of stuff. And one thing that's really stood out to me about this and Scare Me is how you kind of take this approach in both films that it's like, I am a white male, but you know what? There's so much else out there that isn't given the opportunity. Like females, people of color, LGBTQ members, like I really love that about your work. And it kind of speaks in Sam being the lead in this film. He's so good and so just electric to watch in this movie.
Yeah.
Can you like do you at all feel kind of a not pressure but kind of a duty to take the kind of like white male privilege that kind of we have and kind of give opportunities to people that deserve them more than they're getting the opportunities?
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, we could unpack a whole lot of shit here because I just saw a Quiet Place too, and while I love the movie, there's some issues I have with it in a big way, and I'm sure anyone who
Mm-hmm.
did see it will know what I'm talking about. And I love the movie, and I love thinking about my career trajectory, thinking like Jordan Peele, John Krasinski, like actors who come from sketch who are doing this, but yes, I have a responsibility. I've had my time in the spotlight. I think I really scratched the itch with Scare Me. I don't ever need to lead a film again. And I, as a 37-year-old Caucasian filmmaker, I'm. It's not even that I feel like burdened by the weight of the responsibility. It's that I am stoked as a creator to show the world new talent who's kind of been under the radar. It's been my thing for kind of a while. Like people don't realize this about being a director, especially at a place like College Humor for 7 years, despite what, how many videos we made about boobs and beer and video games. One of the most fun things I would do that I really don't get to do in LA anymore. I mean, we had something called a pandemic, but to go to like the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, like UCB East or the Pit Theater or any black box or off Broadway, off Broadway show, something at Barrow Street, whatever else, and see actors do in like black box under the St. Mark's stage stuff and discover people and then like hand out a business card or get a phone number and say, hey, I make these videos, you want to come down and do this thing for $100. It's how I started working with a lot of people, from gosh, Jerah Milligan, to Jermaine Fowler, Natasha Rothwell, who I worked at with a sketch group in New York. The list goes on and on. Chris Kelly, who wrote other people, and it's always been a euphoric part of what I do. I never, I think I perhaps equally wrote about this career, or rode this ride excited about, sure, like me putting on prosthetics and playing like a fun creature, but also like doing it opposite people who like I just thought were great, regardless of what they look like or how
Mm-hmm.
differently able they may be or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm more think about it like how fucking thrilled I am to show you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like Run, Sarah Paulson and Kira Allen. Like Kira Allen, the fact they didn't center that on her disability, it like that was like, oh,
So
this
good.
is
Yeah.
quintessential. Like this low angle fucking Spielberg shot of her rushing out of that, that hardware store, that
Mm-hmm.
pharmacy, and it just not being about anything other than like, look how beyond abled and heroic this person is.
Yeah, definitely. Josh, I won't take up much more of your time. I just had one question. What do we
Yeah.
need to do to help get this Darkman remake
Dark
made?
Man, dude. I don't know.
What do
I don't
we
know.
need to do?
We need to there have been some active conversations, but not active enough. So I do have this kind of retaliatory plan where it's like one day I'll do the like passive aggressive tweet where I'll be like, so today I found out I won't be I won't be doing the Dark Mans. Here's what I would have done, and then just like do like the Macquarie thread,
Mm-hmm.
um I have a really good idea, but I do think it might, Darkman. It should probably be like Batman level familiar to the demographics that be for what I want to do, because I imagine kind of a direct sequel. But I think there's a world for it. I think you could do that in a way that you can succeed. But yeah, man, I thank you for continuing to be on my Darkman Street team.
Yeah, always. Awesome, man. Well, you have a good one. I appreciate you taking
Yeah,
the time
you
to
too,
talk to us
brother. I
today.
appreciate it, Jerry. Yeah, man. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye. You too.